The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Friends in Recovery podcast, the podcast that is here to help you, a loved one, or a friend get started down the road to recovery. This is the Friends in Recovery podcast, brought to you by the Genesis House. Genesis House, providing a safe, nurturing environment to heal from addiction since 1992. Please be a friend and share our message with a friend on Podbean, iTunes, iHeartRadio, or YouTube. And now, here are your Friends in Recovery.
Welcome everybody to the Friends in Recovery podcast, broadcasting live from the Studio One Podcast Café. God, Mike does have a hard job here, Jeff.
It's not easy.
I'm Ed Chionchio.
Jeff Zeizel.
Mike Boyd.
And we have a special guest in a minute. We'll get to Dayna. We are your Friends in Recovery. Come get sober with us. We can be reached at help@friendsinrecoverypodcast.com. Get us on the phone at 800-989-6504. Or check out our website at www.friendsinrecoverypodcast.com. Also look for us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And be sure to like us and subscribe. We'd like to thank Genesis House for sponsoring Friends in Recovery podcast. Now, back to the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe and our show. How's it going, everybody?
Hey.
Very good.
Hi, Dayna. How you doing? We got a special guest today, Dayna Slade.
That's right.
I want to say Smith, but you got married.
Well, yeah, in November, so it's a hard transition for me too, but I got it. It's Dayna Slade. That's
Absolutely.
If you go with Dayna S, you can't be wrong.
That's right. That's right. And we have Mike with us again, a returning announcer, guest, whatever you want to say.
Great to be here. It's an honor.
Yeah, absolutely. We love when you're here. And I am sitting in the Podfather seat today. And it's a lot. It's big shoes to fill here.
It's a big responsibility.
It is. It is. I don't know if we can hear you, Jeff. Can you guys hear Jeff?
Hello?
That's better. Yeah, there you go. And it's a big responsibility in this seat, but we'll try to get through it. And Dayna and I go back a long time.
That's right.
We work very closely together, helping people, getting people into treatment.
That's right.
So you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, Dayna, and what you're going to discuss today?
Sure. Okay. So I am an EAP counselor. I'm a substance abuse counselor. I have two companies. One is Substance Abuse Solutions, and the other one is Impact Training Enterprises. One of my companies allows me to work with Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority down in D.C. It's actually a tri-state organization, so Maryland, D.C., and Virginia, and I'm an EAP counselor there.
Yeah, and that's how we got together.
That's exactly how we met.
And we have Mike also here. I know we introduced you before, but Mike, tell us a little bit about where you're from and what you do. And
So I'm from Massachusetts. I'm a father of a young man that's in recovery today, sober today. I help facilitate a family addiction group called Learn to Cope.
Wonderful.
Which was started by Joanne Peterson.
Yeah.
And I have the great opportunity and honor of helping the Worcester group.
Good.
In Massachusetts.
Good.
And of course everywhere else and across the state.
Good. And in a future show, we're going to find all about Learn to Cope, maybe with Joanne coming on sometime.
Absolutely.
Soon. Good.
Absolutely.
So everybody just kind of tune in, and we'll let you know when Joanne's going to be on. Don't miss that show. So, but right now we do have Dayna and Slade.
Yes.
And we would like to I know you wanted to get into a little bit of a discussion on the cycle of self-deception, the deadly D's.
That's what I want to talk about today. The cycle of self-deception, the deadly D's. We're going to run through it. And before we can even move into self-deception, let me ask a question to the panel. What physically happens to us when we tell a lie?
Sweat.
Yeah.
We sweat.
Right. We have eye movement that shifts.
Eye movement that shifts.
Nervous.
We have an increase in blood pressure, respiration, sweat, muscle tension, and this is all the kind of things that we can measure. Well, with self-deception, the same thing happens. When we're lying to ourselves, we can have the same type of physical reaction, right? So you think about one thing when you're telling a lie, think about when you're living a lie and the physical consequences of living a lie. So things like increased blood pressure becomes high blood pressure, hypertension. Sleep disturbance becomes insomnia. Headaches becomes migraines. Upset stomach becomes things like ulcers and IBS, that kind of stuff. So there's a physical consequence to self-deception, okay? So now let's move into the cycle of self-deception.
Real quick,
Sure.
tell us what self-deception is. Maybe just give us, for some of the viewers out there, this might be a first time for. I know we're on a tight schedule, but they may not know what self-deception is. They might just be tuning in for the first time.
Yeah.
That addict might be watching. Their family member might be watching. So
Okay.
just give us a quick on that, then get into it.
Real easy. Self-deception is when we're not able to face reality. We're not able to face the facts.
So would that be something like when Ed says, "I look good today"?
He could be deceiving himself.
But
right?
Jeff, you always look good. Am I sweating?
No.
I think that's called The Truth Hurts.
So that's it in a nutshell. Real easy, self-deception.
good, okay.
Now, the mothership that all self-deception kind of falls under is a D word. Starts with a D, and it's denial.
So that's not a river in Egypt.
It's not a river in Egypt. Denial, the inability to accept or acknowledge life, the reality, harmful consequences. And so we do that in a number of ways. We do that by rationalizing, and intellectualizing and justifying. So if we're going to talk about alcohol and drug use, what might a person say if they're rationalizing their use?
Well, they can say, my drinking isn't that bad. Look at that guy.
Yeah.
That's right. My drinking is, or minimizing. That's a minimization. Is
I
another
don't
one.
live in the gutter, or I'm I didn't lose my family or my job.
I deserve it.
Yeah.
I had a long week. I deserve
Yeah.
it.
I've worked hard. I
I
deserve
still
it.
work. They don't work.
Yeah.
That's right. I have a job.
Right.
I've never got a DUI. That's that stereotypical comparing out where they're like, oh, I'm not drinking out of a brown paper bag on a park bench, so how could I possibly be an alcoholic, right? So that's the first segment of the deadly D's, denial. So then you move from denial down into detour, and detour is the behavioral acting out of the denial. So it looks like this. People will change people and places and things. They're not actually changing their use in terms of, oh, I have a problem, let me stop. But they're like, well, if I get rid of this person, or if I change this job that was so stressful, if I move, that geographical cure, which we know oftentimes does not work.
No.
Because wherever they go, there they are, right?
That's right.
So you got the geographical cure. Some people will change their pattern of use or their administration of use. So that's the person who goes from, say, maybe vodka to beer, or goes from injecting to snorting. Any way to kind of detour what is really going on. Got it?
So detour being like, from my experience, from both ends of as everybody knows, I'm in recovery and I have family members in recovery. Detouring being like, maybe stop drinking for a while or stop using for a while, and then when things calm down, then you kick it in again. Is that what a detour is?
You are on point there, Ed, but we are talking, this is detour. The next step, which you kind of introduced, is the delay.
Okay.
And in the delay, the person says, you know what, I think I have a problem. I need to stop. And they attempt to stop. But those attempts to quit fail. So they're trying to stop. They're not successful with it, and they realize that they need help. And then they say something like, I'll get help someday, but not today. And so it could be after the new year, or after the kids get out of school, or what kinds of things have you guys heard or you're familiar?
New Year's resolution I was always making. After New Year's I'm gonna have my last hurrah, and that's gonna be it, and I'm gonna stop.
Right.
That was my big thing.
Right.
There was a case that Ed and I were involved in where I was brought in to do an intervention, and the gentleman worked for a financial institution. He said, after the end of the quarter, when
Yes.
all my paperwork is
That's
done,
right.
Yeah.
I'll go. And of course, what happens?
It keeps
They
going.
don't always go.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So,
That's right. At the end of the project, after my birthday, after football season, there's all kinds of when they're going to get help, but there's a delay.
Yeah.
So that denial, detour, and delay kind of fuels the engine of addiction. And I didn't mention it at the top of the show, but family members can also be a part of this cycle. And they can rationalize their loved one's use. Oh, they're having such a hard time right now. Once they're done with that, then I might say something, or something like that. But we'll talk about the family a little bit more in a little bit. But so you got the fueling of the engine of addiction with denial, detour, and delay. And ultimately, a dilemma happens. You're going to hit a dilemma.
Yep.
And those are the harmful consequences. And so harmful consequences can look like a DUI.
Yep.
It can look like an overdose. It can look like health consequences like cirrhosis, or
Losing a job.
Losing your job.
Yep.
Losing your family, losing your freedom.
Divorce. We see that a lot.
Right.
People
Family
get
conflicts.
divorced. Yep.
Kids don't want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah.
Friends
Yeah.
don't even want you.
They're friends. And so
Yeah.
you get real isolated. So that's another one of those harmful consequences. Real isolated and withdrawn. People have accidents. So whether it's a vehicular accident or an accident where, I've seen somebody fall down the escalator in the metro, there's all kinds of consequences, right?
Real quick with
Sure.
dilemma, you're saying isolation. That's perfect for an addict and an alcoholic. They want to make that isolation themselves. So this is probably something that they don't look forward to, but they can make that isolation happen afterwards. Now nobody wants me. Pour me. Pour me a drink, and just stay away from everybody. And now they can drink in their own little world. I get parents once in a while saying, "Yeah, well, I put up a hotel room. I couldn't deal with them anymore." Well, who's paying for the hotel? Well, I am. I put 2 weeks on my credit card. Well, that's a perfect breeding ground for an alcoholic to
That's
live
right.
in, or an addict to live in.
That's
So,
right. And unfortunately, with the progressive nature of addiction and alcoholism, then that isolation eventually does lead to feelings of hopelessness and helplessness and thoughts of, I should just end this thing.
Yeah.
When you feel like nobody cares and there's nobody I could talk to or nobody understands.
Yep.
And that is one of those harmful consequences
Exactly. Yeah.
underneath the dilemma.
Yeah.
And that's actually such a scary thing, because we know when you get to that point, unless there's an intervention of
Yep.
some sort, people can hit their bottom, but sometimes the bottom is death and it's suicide. So we know that many of the suicide cases, when we do a psychological autopsy, 90% of them have substance abuse disorders involved, or they at least were drinking to the point where, as you pointed out, they were so hopeless that they didn't see any way out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, in this cycle of self-deception, what happens is people will resolve the dilemma. So if they had a DUI, then they do whatever the court says they need to do, and then they might go back out drinking and driving. Or if their wife left them, then they're with somebody else. Or if they lost their job, they get another job. Or they have an overdose, they get out the hospital or whatever. And if they don't use the dilemma as an opportunity to make a change, they go right back to start the cycle with the denial. Well, it wasn't that bad, or, I got out of it and I've learned my lesson now.
So does that cycle get deeper as they recycle? I guess that's a good word. Recycle. What gets it deeper and deeper?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You're spinning around in that cycle. It's getting deeper and deeper. And then guess what? The dilemmas get progressively worse, just as
Wow.
the addiction
Yeah.
is getting progressively worse. Nature ups the ante on those dilemmas. It's like a wake-up call. People keep pressing the snooze button, like, oh, no, I don't need to wake up just yet. Oh. And then they'll spin down the cycle again, and it's like, oh, opportunity for me to wake up. Press the snooze button. But it is an opportunity for a decision.
Okay.
Okay, so you go out of dilemma into a decision. You've heard about the third step. You make a decision.
Yep.
And sometimes that decision has to be made several times a day, but you're making a decision. And essentially the decision is what I call either the die or destiny decision. Okay? And if you're going to go down the die side of things, then you're going to continue to stay isolated. You're not making any changes. There's no self-care. There's, no connection to people in recovery. And essentially, it's that slow death, like giving death payments on a layaway plan. And that you just end up spiritually dying and emotionally dying and physically dying until you become like the Walking Dead. And the flip side of that would be the destiny side, where you're doing the exact opposite. And it kind of starts with self-care.
Yep.
It starts with connecting with people in recovery,
Yep.
getting in the rooms, getting a sponsor, learning the steps, things like going to see the doctor, just all the things that are involved in recovery.
So I like to say showing up for life.
Showing up for life.
Guys, hang on 1 second. We're going to get into this a little bit more after the break. We're going to take a quick break here. You're listening to Friends in Recovery Podcast, live from Studio One Podcast Café.
Hammer down and check out the Don't Do It Yourself podcast. The Don't Do It Yourself podcast is a weekly podcast where Tommy Two Shoes and No Nonsense Nance sit down with a different specialist every week. If you're tired of unvetted and uninsured contractors charging too much money for not enough quality, you need to check out the Don't Do It Yourself podcast, the contractor's referral program. The Don't Do It Yourself podcast is live on YouTube every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. or on demand on iTunes, Podbean, iHeartRadio, or your favorite podcast catcher. Put that hammer down and don't do it yourself. Genesis House is a premier substance abuse and rehabilitation facility located in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. We have been providing the highest quality of addiction treatment since 1992 and are accredited by the Joint Commission. We offer a range of programs that include detox, residential treatment, dual diagnosis, a Christian track for people who want to incorporate their faith into treatment, a uniform services track, and we work with most major insurance carriers. Genesis House is led by a dedicated team of administrative and clinical professionals, and we stand on our commitment to excellence in recovery services. Contact us today to find out more about our program. Take the first step and call Genesis House at 800-737-0933 or visit us on the web at www.genesishouse.net. That's 800-737-0933 or www.genesishouse.net. Begin your journey to a long and successful recovery with Genesis House.
Soul Sessions is an intuitive life coaching service that provides a safe place for everyone to get the guidance they are seeking. Intuitive life coach Shanti Sincere Slade uses her powerful gifts of empathy, spiritual connection, intuition, human experience, and conscious listening to provide a safe place to evolve and shed light on the truth of who we all are, brilliant divine beings. Remembering ourselves as spiritual beings helps us to navigate through the human experience with more gratitude and ease. For more information or to book a free 30-minute telephonic consultation, please visit our website at www.soulsessions.com. That's www.SOEL for Seeing Ourselves Evolve Lovingly, sessions with an S.com. We can all use a little guidance.
Richie Lombardi, the Step Guy, joins us once a month on the second Tuesday, where we plan to get in-depth with each of the 12 steps to recovery. Come get sober with the Friends in Recovery podcast and Rich, the Step Guy, Lombardi. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to get this and every episode each and every week.
Welcome back to the Friends in Recovery Podcast, live from Studio 21 Podcast Café. We're here with Dayna Slade from the EAP in D.C., and we're discussing the cycle of self-deception.
That's right.
Ed is filling in for Mike Miles, and I think is finally realizing how hard it is. And we agreed that Mike Miles' shoes are quite hard to fill. He's a 12 and a half. So,
you know what that means, Jeff?
I do know what that means.
You got something for us?
Yes. Welcome to the Time Takes Time portion of the show, sponsored by the Genesis House. This is where we ask our friends in recovery to email us your sober anniversaries so we can celebrate them with you. Congratulations to the following. Jeffrey M., 16 years from Newton, Mass.
All right, Jeff.
Go, Jeff.
Way to go, Jeffrey M. Kenny Z, 7 years, Richmond, Virginia.
Congrats.
A Southern lad. Sandy K, 12 years, East Boston. Very good, Sandy.
There you go.
And from Mahopac, New York, 3 years, Bill C.
Good for
All right,
you, Bill.
good job, Bill.
So if you would like to celebrate your anniversary with us, please email us your first name, last initial, city, state, and anniversary date to help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com. Remember, time takes time. Sponsored by Genesis House. And listen for your name in the upcoming shows.
And also, one quick other thing, too. We miss Mike Miles, the Podfather. We also, don't forget, we have some shirts that we like to get out there. Mike, we had a bunch of shirts made up. It says Friends in Recovery on the front, podcast on the back. It says Podfather with a microphone on it. It's a pretty cool shirt. So if you'd like to get one of those, email us at just the email that Jeff said, help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com. Give us your size, and you're looking at about $20 a shirt, and we'll get it out to you. So.
And I heard if it doesn't fit, it's a great rag to wash the car.
That's right. It does double as a great rag.
Oh, my goodness.
So we're back here discussing the cycle of self-deception with Dayna from the EAP, and we were going to finish that up, and then we're going to tie in the family at the end of this also, right. Because like we were just discussing, and Mike, you and I know this all too well, and Jeff, from your experience, that you and I were looking at this and saying, we played a role in this. We did all of this to our loved ones. Not to the full extent, but we're in denial. We try to detour. We do the delay. We do all that as far as a family member, maybe thinking that he or she really doesn't have a problem. And we can definitely tie into that in a minute.
I was the master of that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, then I definitely want to hear from you. Let's close out the cycle, okay? So just as a quick recap, the beginning of the cycle is with denial, which is the inability to accept or acknowledge harmful consequences. Then we go to the detour, which is the behavioral acting out of the denial. Then we go to delay, which is recognizing that a problem exists but postponing taking any action. All of that kind of spins around, leads to a dilemma or harmful consequences that can get progressively worse over time, which is each time it's an opportunity to make a decision, which we were calling the die or destiny decision. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about any way you can slice health, physical health, mental health, spiritual health, financial health, social health. In between, this is where we kind of left off, and this is the last part of the cycle. In between the die and the destiny is defeat. It connects the two. And it's important for people to realize that either way, they're going to surrender. They're going to wave that white flag of surrender. And if it's on the die side, they're going to say something like, F it. I'll just use till I die. Mm-hmm. I can't see a life without using, so I'll just use until I'm taken out. And then the flip side of that is to wave the white flag. And then, of course, we're looking at step one, yep. And an admittance of being powerless and that things have become unmanageable. So this is a cycle that people can go through with alcohol, drugs, food addiction, sex addiction.
Absolutely.
But we're talking about the individuals, but we have alluded a couple times to the fact now that the family mm-hmm. and loved ones yep. go through this same cycle. Starting with the denial, starting with the rationalization and the justifying. So I know, Mike, you've been itching to say a few things because you can relate to what I'm talking about, especially when it comes to the family.
So fortunately, unfortunately, I can relate to it. And again, kudos to Joanne Peterson for starting Learn to Cope.
Absolutely.
And embracing me in the family we never want to belong to, and that's the family of Learn to Cope, which helps us save ourselves so we can help our loved ones. Mm-hmm. With that said, the disease of addiction isn't just little Mike. It's everybody around Mike. It's a family disease. Mm-hmm. It's a disease that no one ever really seen coming at this level. And everything you say on this topic of, so delicately and intricately put into life, it's really life.
Yeah.
I mean, you could apply it to anything, as you said, anything in life. But it goes so hand in hand with the parent.
Yes.
And I'm speaking for myself, and I'm sure there are a lot of others out there listening who would agree with me, where it wasn't the denial wasn't
The river.
It's not the river in
No,
Egypt.
it was me, the father, Mike.
Yeah.
I denied everything. I didn't believe. I was in disbelief. How could this young man, a good person, where they always used to say, "Oh well, it wouldn't happen to my kid." I even said it. It's the people from somewhere else, but no. It's a disease that affects every walk of life, everywhere in this country, as we're seeing now. And I remember the first time I got a call from some law enforcement officials. I'll leave it at that. And they told me that they had my son, and it appears he had overdosed. So I thought to myself, what is this? Is this a joke?
Got the wrong number.
Yeah, this got to
Not
be.
my son.
Not my son.
So I just that was my first run of this, where I said, you know what? This is not true. This is not happening. I did the ostrich syndrome, where I would stick my head in the sand at first, and I denied everything. I didn't believe it, and I thought they were lying to me. And we could go into that a lot more detail.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for the families that are listening out there, they might be stuck in the middle of this and not even realize it. And I know I was, you were. We were both at both ends, and we have the privilege now to work with those families and have them recognize. You too, Jeff and Dayna, we all have the privilege to help those families recognize and hopefully break this cycle, this crazy cycle of self-deception or self-deception.
What's interesting is that when you have an individual who has an addictive disorder, we know that statistically 6 to 10 people are directly impacted by that person. So it's usually the family, close friends, maybe it's colleagues at work. But it is interesting because you're the EAP clinician at Metro DC, the interesting thing is that the workplace won't always tolerate some of those behaviors for a variety of reasons. Number one, we're dealing with human lives. It's a DOD, Department of Transportation, safety sensitive position, etc. They're not going to tolerate this stuff because it's illegal to tolerate it. In our homes, we'll tolerate it. If you have a bus driver or a train conductor or a mechanic, they're not allowed. If they fail the drug test, they're taken out of commission.
That's right.
They have to go see the SAP, which is what you are, substance abuse professional, get evaluated, follow the treatment recommendations. Then they have to be cleared and drug tested, all the protocols. Then maybe after a certain period of time, they get back to work. In our families, you get a son or a daughter or a loved one, they're walking around drunk. We don't take the car keys away from them. We ask them, we tell them what time you come. We ask them what time you're coming home. We don't say this is insane. We're not going to tolerate this, but we do tolerate it because it's the conspiracy of denial. And we all, as you said, Mike, we behave like ostriches.
I completely denied it. I didn't believe it. I didn't believe anybody who talked to me about it. I would look at him. Well, Dad, they're crazy. They're not. They're lying to you. I said, of course they are. It's not my son. I know that. I know.
The not my kid syndrome.
It's easier to align with the denial.
Well, nobody wants to believe that their kid's using drugs or I'm in treatment. I work for a treatment center, and I didn't believe it. What's I always say the shoe guy has holes in his shoe. Exactly.
That's like
so
you ask yourself, how do you know when your son who's using drugs is lying?
When his mouth's moving.
That's it. That's the answer.
I'm so sorry.
But that's
it's so true, though. It is true.
And you take that position and then work backwards. Assume everything they tell you is a lie till proven otherwise, because that will save their lives.
Absolutely.
So how that worked with Learn to Cope, they brought me full circle, where I realized, you know what? I have to take care of Mike. And Learn to Cope family helped me take care of me. So I did open my eyes, and I did realize this is really happening, people. This is live action.
Thank God for Learn to Cope. They turn a lot of people's lives around. We're going to take a quick break here. We have a new segment in our show that we're going to kind of go over right now.
And now it's time for a sincere moment with Shanti Sincere Slade, brought to you by Soul Sessions.
Welcome to Sincere Moment. This is Shanti Sincere Slade, and I want to talk to you guys today about letting go.
This is our job, man.
And how imperative it is to let go. It's funny how There are times we find things in our closet that triggers us that we thought we let go a long time ago. And it shows up again. And then we freak out because we thought we already let that baggage go. Well, I'm here to let you know that you can let it go as many times as you need to. The good thing about this is that once you let it go the first time, now you understand you have the capability of letting it go as many times as you need to. So don't be hard on yourself. Remember to just let it go. Thank you for tuning into A Sincere Moment.
Well, thank you, Sincere, for that moment. That's going to be a new portion of our show, that sponsor of our show that you're gonna hear throughout each and every time. I'd like to thank you, Dayna.
Well, it's
Slade,
a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having
coming
me on.
That was
Thank you for having
enlightening.
me on.
That was beautiful. I know it kind of near and dear to our hearts up here.
Yeah.
And that was just wonderful how you went through it. I wish we had 5 hours to go each.
Oh, I would
and
love to spend some more time talking about it too, especially with the family component and what happens with the hiding of the alcohol and all kinds of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have you back on. We'll definitely have you back
How
on.
about we do that?
And, yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
And go into
I'd
a
love
little more
to.
detail. Jeff, any closing words?
I just want to say how lucky Metro DC
Absolutely.
Transit is to have Dayna. I mean, she's
Thank you,
fantastic.
Jeff.
You are awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
If we stole her, would that be kidnapping?
We'd have to bring Sincere with her.
Package deal.
Well, that's all for today's show, everybody. We are your friends in recovery, broadcasting live from the Studio 21 Podcast Café. And don't forget, you can reach us at help@friendsinrecoverypodcast.com. Our phone number is 800-989-6504. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Be sure to like us and subscribe. Come get sober with us. Thanks, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Café, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.